Welcome, everyone. This is our third live neighborhood project. We really appreciate everybody taking the time. I'm cleaning my glasses so I can see again, but we've been doing this the last couple of days and it's been really interesting. We're gathering people from around the country just to have a conversation. We watch something together and then we talk. Fairly straightforward. Martha, do you want to add anything to that? No? Okay. I'm going to, hey Trish, just before we start, I would love it if you guys, because you guys were talking just before we came on, and you guys did what's called a neighborhood project last night. If you don't know what that is, you watch a film, then you have a conversation. We do it around the country. We do it live. Liz does it in her house in Maine. Trish does it in her house in Southern California. Just give us a little lowdown. How was it? What was it like last night?
So last night there were about 10 or 12 of us on. And I allowed about 15 minutes ahead of time to just catch up, see how everybody's doing. And in the middle of our project, that's when Gavin Newsom came on and said, as a state, we're shutting down. So that kind of moved things around. I showed our film, and the conversations that came out were truly the same conversations that we would have sitting around my living room.
Yeah.
And everybody loved the platform. They loved that they were able to be comfortable in their own homes. And they understand that this is where we have to be right now. So they want to do it again. They're happy to do it again. And it was quite lovely. It was
great.
Lovely.
Great. So we keep hearing that. And we're pleased. And then we're going to create sort of impromptu content. Some of you guys are on like a monthly schedule, and we're going to make little mini things so that you guys have more stuff to use as you go. Martha's probably having a heart attack as I say that, but but it is true that we're going to do that. But anyway, so I'm going to keep moving here. Unless, Martha, do you have anything you want to say about this before I do? No? Oh,
and I didn't mean to just say nothing before. I'm so excited about the idea that it works online, because we had never tested it online before. Like, we were really committed to the circling up, and I certainly had a bias about the in-person when we would talk about doing online. And so I can't tell you how relieved I was when we did it the other night online, and it felt the same. And the people who participated felt the same. And I thought, oh, thank God we still have this, because if this was something that wasn't going to work online, then we were going to all be stuck and miss this in our lives. And I think it's really important. It's as important now, if not more important than ever, to be able to circle up like this. So I've
had a meeting and we have another group of people I'm involved with, and we've done it 8 days in a row. It's been incredible. It's been great, really necessary. So let's move quick though. Martha, you want to just do a quick preamble and then we'll get right to it?
Yes. I did this last time where I didn't have it up. Sorry. We're learning on the fly.
Just the rules everybody understands.
Kind of like the rules for the road. A lot of you know it, but just as a reminder, and this is a truncated version. So our preamble is, come gather round, people. The mission of the Neighborhood Project is to unite and help individuals and communities through meaning and conversation. This preamble reflects the values and experiences of our organization and our neighborhood groups. It highlights practices for healthy and fruitful gatherings. We gather online today to learn, grow, heal, and serve. Consequently, we benefit ourselves, our communities, and our nation. Some of our rules are: we respect diverse views, we reject finger wagging, self-promotion, divisive language. Listening is an action word, and a good conversation is as much about listening as it is about sharing. When the film ends, the conversation will begin. There is no leader. Anyone can speak. Let's start the project.
Awesome. Thank you, Martha. And we're cutting out parts just for efficiency's sake, but that's okay. And as Martha mentioned, we're going to show a film. We'll have a little bit of a conversation. Jeff's going to tell a story. The rest of it's free flowing. If you've, we've had a great relationship with Nadia Bolz-Weber over the years, both live and in film, on island and in other cities all over the country. And I know I speak for my team when I say it's been amazing to get to know Nadia. And I know as an individual, it's been amazing to get to know Nadia just as a way to navigate my own life. So I feel blessed to have gotten to know you and And I thought a lot about, this week, everything that's going on and everything everyone's going through. I think your message matters. So we thought this is a good thing to get in. And as usual with the neighborhood project, we start with a film. So we have a shared experience. We're going to do that now.
A physical life is a spiritual life. Everything that happens to us in life happens to our bodies. So our bodies carry a wisdom and carry our own sort of narrative. For some people, having tattoos is actually a fairly vulnerable thing. To have a tattoo means that we're choosing to take things from the inside and wear them on the outside in a way that's really exposing. I started getting tattooed in 1986, so there weren't a lot of teenage girls in '86 being tattooed. There was a self-determination, like I was going to mark myself as not being part of the mainstream tribe. I have a huge one that's a cover-up of a tattoo that Jimmy the junkie gave me when I was 20 years old and laying in his living room. So it was like scar tissue from a junkie tattoo. I've had demons. I was so self-destructive, and I didn't have anything to do with Christianity for 10 years. I was on this path to killing myself. I've been sober 25 years. If you end up with what's called long-term sobriety, you bury your friends. You bury the people who couldn't stay sober. Jimmy is dead, and I can't say it's because I worked a better program that I'm here. Getting sober brought me on this road back to spirituality. When I was struggling with my unlikely call to be a preacher, I really clung to Mary Magdalene, so much so that I got her tattooed on me. She had these 7 demons cast from her. I've had demons cast out of me, in a sense. If she was chosen to be the first witness of the resurrection, because in her own body she had already experienced it, so she knew how to proclaim it, maybe it meant I could too. One of the more interesting things folks will say to me is, I'm not religious or anything, I just hope that being a good person is enough. To which I'm like, well, enough for what? Avoiding the punishment of burning in the eternal fires of some kind of imaginary hell? People, for some reason, feel like they have to justify to me why they don't go to church, which, in all honesty, I seriously don't care. At all. In my job, I take people's confession. Often I'm like, nothing personal, but I'm super unimpressed by your sin. You should go out and try harder, really. When I look back on my past, especially the darker times, I really do so with gratitude. I truly don't have any shame from who I was or what I've done at all. I don't understand why I would. It's the truth, and it feels like the truth is something that we really resist. But literally, it's the thing Jesus said would set us free. My religious upbringing gave me dualistic categories to see everything in the world. Where there's right and wrong, there's us and them, there's saved, there's lost. But nothing's ever only one thing. I have a tattoo in Latin, simul justus et peccator, which is simultaneously sinner and saint. It's a Lutheran doctrine, that we're simultaneously sinner and saint, like 100% of both all the time. Nobody's like 80-20, you know? You can't like work really hard to get there, like it's just who we are. We all have such capacity for beauty and harm at the same time. We have an absolution in my church that goes like this. It says, God, who is gracious and merciful and slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, loves you as you are. Like, no one says that shit to me in yoga class. You know, like, for me, like, I need to hear things like that. Blessed are the forgotten. Blessed are the closeted. Blessed are the unemployed, the unimpressive, the underrepresented. Blessed are those who no one else notices. The kids who sit alone at middle school lunch tables, the laundry guys at the hospital, the sex workers and the night shift street sweepers. Blessed are the meek. You are of heaven and Jesus blesses you. You may hate your bodies, but I'm blessing all human flesh. You may admire strength and might, but I'm blessing all human weakness. You may seek power, but I'm blessing all human vulnerability. You are of heaven and Jesus blesses you.
Okay. Is everyone back? I haven't seen that in a while, and I love it. Nadia, have you seen it? Is that the first time you've seen it? You're muted, by the way, Nadia. I'm going to unmute you. Have you seen it before?
I don't know. I think maybe I just saw like an early cut of it. I don't think I saw the final thing. It's super awkward to watch it with other people. I just was like, oh, my hair didn't look very good that day. You know?
And how does it make you feel any way, especially now?
Well, only that, like my partner always reminds me that I'm just a conduit for a message that I need. So it's, I only ever say things that I need to be reminded of and to hear. So only insofar as like it helped sort of ground me back in the physical reality. I mean, to talk about a physical life as a spiritual life, that's very challenging because we're just doing so much online right now. Like we don't get to be in people's physical presence. And so it felt actually a little sad for me to be reminded of that line right now.
Yeah, for me, it's, you know, that when you really, for me, when I'm in a moment of actually being in that moment and I'm confronting that question of the truth setting me free and why are we so afraid of that thing? I don't know the answer to that, but I know I feel that, right? I know I feel that fear of truth. And I believe in the other side of that equation. I mean, my own experience with, life's problems is that the light and the darkness are just right next to each other, and that the darkness like gives such an invitation to go to the light. But it's just like whoever came up with yin yang, like that person was smart, Trish, you're on mute.
Why are we so afraid of the truth? Why?
I think we've just been given a million messages as to why. I mean, I think our culture really colludes in that fantasy of self-perfection, in this idea that if we just tried hard enough, like I always say, like we could bridge that distance between our ideal self and our actual self. And there's just, I think I think it's a self-protective mechanism to not face the actual truth of things. And there are times when not facing the truth of things is the best thing you could do. And I think wisdom lies in knowing when to pivot towards it. We can't, it's like a few good men, like you can't handle the truth. I think there are times that's true. And but wisdom is that knowing when that pivot is, when you can actually deal with it, when your psyche is strong enough to hold it. Not everyone's there at every moment, and I think that's okay. But the thing I always say is that if there's a thing that is true that you're not looking at, if you ignore it, it doesn't just go away. It just like lifts weights in the corner. It just gets like stronger and stronger until it comes out sideways and slaps you upside the head, or hurts somebody you love. That's more often than not the way these things seep out.
So
Oh, Tommy, go ahead.
well, I'm gonna invite Jeff to tell a story. Nadia, can I mention you have something new coming out? Your
Yeah,
podcast?
for sure. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I'm going to do a bastardized version of describing it, but basically Nadia's got a new podcast coming out where it's about moments of challenge or moments of shame that people tell that story and reflect upon that story. And at Nadia does a individualized blessing at the end. How'd I do?
It's pretty good. It's called the confessional. And so people come and tell me a story about them at their worst, or when they did something they regret, or they hurt someone they love, or the thing we don't want people to know. And we sort of hold hands and explore it a little. And then, we talk about how they've changed and whatnot. And then I go away and I write an original blessing that I record for them at the end. So rather than like confession and absolution, it's more like admission and benediction. And it's distributed by PRX, and it's being presented by the Moth, which is a community that has a lot akin with the Nantucket Project, I'd say. And the first episode comes out April 21st. So it's been amazing to explore these stories with people. It's an honor. I mean, here's the thing, like, I always just want to feel less alone. And it's great, that there's so many opportunities to be dazzled by people's virtues and accomplishments in life. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I only actually feel less alone when people admit their failures with me. And so the things they're not proud of. And so it's helped me feel less alone, hearing these stories and holding them. It's an honor. So.
On that night, I knew that Nadia was going to come on today. I spoke to Jeff this morning and said, "Hey, you want to come on and tell the story you just told me?" And he said, "Sure." So, Jeff,
I can't wait to hear it.
take it away.
I feel like I want to say I'm Jeff. I'm an alcoholic. Because I've been on a lot of AA Zoom meetings lately. I think I'm binging them. And this is the first moment in the last 2 weeks I wanted to cry. And I'm not sure why. I think it's because I feel so connected to you guys on this call right now. And I've seen you just let it out. And I've shared so much where I've seen you raw. And I've been trying to protect myself from feeling and trying to convince myself that, because I tried to kill myself and because I went to prison, that I'm somehow prepared for this, that what we're going through now. And it's a weird deal because I'm used to confinement. I've even studied confinement. I understand this, something about the spiritual nature of it, but I can't believe I'm confined again. And this was not the plan. You know, Nadia, you said you had 25 years of sobriety. I'm coming on 18 in a couple of months. And, it was the most liberating moment of my life was getting sober after the most horrendous 10 years of pain and struggle and running away and looking over my shoulder. And I was addicted to Demerol and OxyContin. And I had this, successful life in Rye and Greenwich, and it just all came tumbling down. And I've learned to take responsibility for it, but I don't want to. I don't want to take responsibility for it now. I want to cast myself as an early victim of the opioid crisis, and somehow not have responsibility. But the truth is that that's not who I am. It's not what I preach. I preach to people who are suffering and try to move them into acceptance and surrender. And in truth, I'm not there nearly as much as I try to help people to be there, because I feel like I got to put on a brave face. And like this morning, I was posting something because I have a ministry that supports people who've been prosecuted for white collar crimes and their families. And I'm getting a lot of flack online now. Like, what makes white collar people so important? I'm going, important? Like, what are you talking about? I mean, like, I lost everything. And everyone I know has lost everything. And I can't go into the process of how by losing everything I found myself. That's not what they want to hear. They just want to lash out or admonish me for being something that they think I am that I'm not. Or maybe I still am part of. I don't know. I don't know. So this morning Tom said to me, he said, you don't have to talk about the drugs and the alcohol if you don't want. And I said to him, all I want to talk about is the drugs and the alcohol. That's like, the fact that I'm not doing drugs right now is incredible. It's crazy. Like, I couldn't stand any pain or discomfort whatsoever, anything. And now I kind of accept pain as being just so much part of this journey. Whatever I was trying to hide from or get away from when I destroyed that old life, this is the life I got. So why would I want to diminish or a moment of it in all of its, all of its mess and pain? And so, Nadia, I relate. I've seen you so many times speak and on podcasts and all, and I just relate so much to your story, and in weird ways, just in weird ways, because I just feel like who I am, and I've been given the gift of being able to talk about it, and to the extent that can help anybody, that's great. But I know it's helping me. So that's it for me. Thank you for letting me share today.
And Jeff, thank you. That was beautiful. And Nadia as well. I think what you guys are giving me is so incredible. I'm 25, so obviously pretty early on in this journey of life. But I have the hardest time and so when you get bored with it as well, relief for me as a young person trying to get by in this hectic world, and even time spending all this time with my family. And I think for at least the last couple of months, I've really been trying to help myself with that and be my own self-advocate and changing for the better. And it's really reassuring to hear you guys say that.
Jeff, when you were talking about, I just had like an aha moment. When you were talking about you can't believe you're not getting high right now with what's going on, like of course you would be. And I was like, oh yeah, gosh, I'm so glad that that's not what happens, how I cope to avoid. And you know what I do to avoid? I work. Like I'm a workaholic. And so like I find myself kind of flailing a little bit to create boundaries. You know, I feel like someone who I'm sorry. I am isolated alone, away from my family. I mean, it's lovely. I have food. It's great. But I'm working like till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And when I talk to people about how we can change it, they're like, that's on you. And I'm like, no, I feel like the expectations are this, or the circumstances are this. But as you said it, I'm like, it's totally on me. Because this is the way that I avoid pain or facing things. Anyway, I mean, I knew that I was a working type. It's why everyone wants me on their team. You know, it's why I get the job offers and people like to hire me, and it's why you want me in your corner. But I never really thought about the equivalency, you know, and that just hit me like, oh, this is me trying to avoid thinking about how this feels, you know, how helpless I feel and how anxious I am and alone. So anyway, I thought I was going to say that without getting too teary, but it's impossible.
Yeah, you know, I would just say that I know you're right, you know. Generally speaking, I'm a relatively healthy person. I use the word generally, and I use the word but I also have to work hard at it, you know, and I think some of the things that you just described, it's what I described when you know, when Nadia talked about truth. I feel the war in there. I just feel the whole war, you know, I feel it all there. And generally speaking, like anybody else, I'm blown away. Good peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Sounds awesome. Rocky Road, Haagen-Dazs, that sounds great. I could name some other things, but I won't name them here. And, you know, I just want to run. And I totally understand that the notion of having practices or habits or whatever you want to call it in your life that is just a way to hide. That's all it is, because you do want to turn that thing off. You know, I'm lucky in that I have routines. I see people every day. I keep a journal. I meditate. I do these things. Now, I'm not saying that to brag, because all I can tell you is that helps. But then there's still more left. You know, there's still more left. There's still, and I think it's very difficult for people to understand. I saw this thing online. I won't even mention it because I'll just get in trouble for it. But I basically saw a group of people beating the shit out of a group of people online just yesterday. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing to these people? You know, it's like, why now? Why do you want to be jumping all over? I actually think the people doing all the jumping, they don't mean it. If they were face to face with this person, there's no way they'd be doing that thing. Part of what they're doing is exactly what you're doing. They're hiding from their things and dealing with their things. And I think if I've had the benefit, and others on this call have had the benefit of going deep on it and studying it, understanding it. And when I say to people, Martha's working to avoid some of the challenges in her life, they might think that's a bunch of hog shit, you know, but it's just true. And I could give you a long list of mine, but I'm not going to keep going. So.
We all know them, Tom.
Oh, and Martha, you can have the next 2 weeks off. I work with Martha.
Yeah, Tom, when you were
This
talking
was not a
about
ploy to get some PTO at all.
when you were talking about like you journal and you meditate and you go to meetings, you do this stuff, I was just like, it's amazing you're still so fucked up. I don't like, like I would fully expect you to not be so fucked up. And it helps me let go of this thing I have where I think if I start doing those things, I'll be so much healthier. I'll be so much of a better person. So I just want to say, I feel like you freed me from this unreasonable delusion I have that somehow if I start journaling and going to meetings and like being around people more, that I'd be a better person. So it was an act of service. I do want to say that I have so much, I don't know, I have so much compassion for us human beings, just in terms of like, oh my God, we're all just doing whatever we can to fucking get by, you know? And like sometimes that means eating too many cookies or streaming too much Netflix or whatever it is, working too much. But also, I think having kindness when we look at that helps it have softer edges to it, you know, that instead of it having to be just one more thing we have to put so much effort into improving about ourselves. Like, I don't know. I guess Martha, I think you're amazing, and it was a gift to hear you talk about that. And but we all have our things, you know. Hopefully we swap them out for increasingly less harmful, you know, addictions and compulsions. I don't know. Is that the only hope? I don't know that we ever really get clear from it, you know. But hopefully we can do a little harm reduction. That's my great hope.
You know what you're saying, Nadia, in the full sort of 360 of what we do choose to face, right? Some of our truths are inspiring and energizing and uplifting, and right, isn't that part of the landscape that we navigate, is the part of our truths that affirm who we are and who we're trying to be? And so it almost feels like the conversation about truth avoidance needs to include the part of that is causing us to deprive ourselves of some real good that we have around us, that we deserve to have and feel. It just feels like it's a zero-sum conversation if the truth is always something we're trying to avoid.
Well, sometimes the truth I'm trying to avoid are actually the sort of nicer parts of me. Like I'm sort of somebody, I had a conversation with this guy recently who's just so wise, and I was talking about being in recovery, and I said, well, are you in recovery? And he said no. And then later in the conversation he goes, you know, I want to kind of track back to that question. He goes, I do feel like I'm in recovery, but I feel like I'm in recovery from an addiction to my personality. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I just was like, oh, I can't even look at you right now. Because there are parts of my personality that I've sort of presented as being, this is who I am, and I want everyone, it feels safest if everyone relates to just this part of me. And just the past few years have just been ones of softening for me. And the example I have is my friend Caitlin is just this lovely woman. We met the first day in seminary, and she's just, everything about us is kind of different. And on my 40th birthday party, I rented out a roller rink and had a roller disco party. And on her 40th birthday party, she gathered with a small group of friends at sunrise, and they hiked up a hill and had some champagne. I was just like, oh my God, Caitlin, there's so many like lovely aspects to you. And I just feel like I don't have those. And she goes, of course you do, Nadia. They're just not your favorite parts. And I was like, fuck.
Heavy. Nice. Nice. Wow.
I always have a personal conflict between the shoulds and the wants. I know there's a lot of stuff I should be doing, especially I'm stuck at home. There's a ton I should be doing that I haven't been able to do otherwise. But there's also the wants. And my mother actually forbid my two sisters and myself from saying the phrase, Mom, you should, because it meant that something that we were going to say afterwards was something that she either had to do or stop doing. So we're not allowed to say that to her anymore. It's conflict, the shoulds and the wants.
You know, and can everybody hear me okay?
Hey, Stephen.
Oh, what's up, man? How you guys? It's good to see everybody. In the aspect of truth, I feel like it's the great kind of releaser, because it just, in my own aspect in life, until you accept your actual truth, you can never move forward in anything, because your truth is something that you can't change per se. You know what I mean? It's something that is a constant and something that's already happened. I kind of revert to it with racism in today. I have the wonderful opportunity of working with a great group of people up in Boston. And one thing that I learned from just being with them is I knew what racism was, but I didn't fully understand it. And there's two differences. Everybody knows what racism is, but to understand the fundamental roots of it, that's why we struggle it's a global thing, in moving forward and being able to accept people for who they are, and not just based off of, you know, where they come from, what their demographic is, what the color of their skin is, and things like that. So one thing that I've tried to do in my own life is simply accepting what it is and figuring out how to change what certain outcomes are later on down the line, because your truth is your truth. What, you know what I mean? Where you stand and where you fit in, that's who you are. And until you accept who you are, like you said, you're kind of stuck in a rut in a revolving door that you can never get from behind.
Can't you change parts of your truth? I hope so.
Well, but I think that comes down to decision making. You know what I mean? Because
Right, the shoulds. The shoulds.
So, like, for example, like I am a brown man. That is my truth. That is something that I cannot change. However, how I go about things, how I try to behave, and how I try to act, those are the variables that can be controlled, if you will. But the truth still remains. You know what I mean?
What?
Something you said at the beginning, Stephen. Am I the only one who has to keep learning the truth will set you free lesson over and over again?
I say it every day.
Because like I have learned this before, and then I won't get too much detail, but I'll tell you a personal story. One of the reasons I went out to California last week and didn't cancel, there were a few, but one was because I had to have a conversation with somebody who I've had this connection with for a long time, and we were back in each other's lives, and I knew deep down that there wasn't anything romantic there, that actually, if that was going to happen, it would have happened a long time ago. But because we hadn't had a direct conversation about it again, or I felt like we talked around it, I forced this conversation. And, you know, I've been carrying this for years, on and off. I would pretend for a while that I didn't care anymore, and I would move on with my life or date other people or do different things. And I went to talk to him, and everything he said I already knew. The truth of it I already knew. But I don't know why I had to make us have that conversation to make him say it again, or say it out loud to me, even though I already knew. And the second that we had that conversation and he validated that I wasn't misunderstanding and that whatever, I felt so much better. but it was nothing new. I had already known the truth of it. I would never have had to have that conversation if I didn't already know that. And I what?
But so that's what I was saying. You have to accept the truth. The truth will always be the truth, and there's nothing wrong with saying like, I'm struggling to accept it, because there's always things that were like, man, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good, but it doesn't change the truth. You know what I mean? So it's a lesson I think we all can say we all learn for the rest of our lives every single day. So there's nothing wrong with Martha. It's just as humans, we don't like to be uncomfortable, and the fact of the matter is the truth is something that's uncomfortable. And until you accept it and truly accept it, like, you know what, this is what it is, you know. And like I said, I'm sure everybody, we all have stories just like you. So you're not alone in any stretch of imagination.
I just thought I'd learned it before, and I'd had this feeling free after you accept it situation before. Like, I'm almost 50 now. I've played this game in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s. And so when you said it, I was like, gosh, I'm just slow on the uptake, or is it like acceptance? Like, you're going to have to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep learning that lesson again and remember how good it feels to just accept what you know that you've been denying.
You know, the thing I had a friend of mine tell me I'm not going to care what people think about me anymore. And
good luck with that.
Yeah. Well, and the greatest thing that I've learned is, you know, it's an annoying word. I live a life of annoyingness, practice, mindfulness, right? All this crap. Practice is the deal. That's the built-in forgetter. I will forget all the good stuff every day unless I practice it all the time. Like those things, it's a line in our world. Cunning, baffling is the word we use. It's coming your way. It's coming your way all the time. And practice means everything. What we're doing right now, you are doing me this service of reminding me of truths and reminding me of the value of truths that if I don't do anything about, tomorrow I will be less healthy again. And then if it's 2 days, I'll be less healthy than that. I think that is the nature of human nature. But I would also add, though, that, yeah, your truths definitely can change. You know, people say, you've heard me say this before, people don't change. Bullshit. I see it all the time. I see it all the time. And the people who change, they have practices. And then they connect with people too, by the way. What we're doing right now, I cannot tell you a replacement for that. I tried. It ain't Zoloft, not for me. I'm nothing wrong with Zoloft, but not for me.
You know,
I think
about
that
having to relearn lessons about like, fuck, I thought I learned this before and then kind of getting down on ourselves. It's like, would you judge your body for needing a tetanus booster? You know, like some things you just need booster shots for, and you're not going to be like, my body's a failure because I need a tetanus booster. You know, it's like monumentally unfair. Like some things we do have to learn over and over. And I don't know that I don't think it's fair to imply that you know, that means something's wrong.
Somehow the word I'm connecting to this whole thing is identity. And one of the things I'm seeing with this coronavirus pandemic is the first thing that everyone's clinging on to their identity. Like old people are most at risk, young people are most at risk, impoverished people are most at risk, blonde people are most at risk, whatever it happens to be. And everyone wants to first carve out to protect their piece of it somehow. Prisoners are more at risk. People on cruise ships are more at risk. And this thing is just spreading like wildfire, and it's indiscriminate. And I'm praying that at some point we just all just release our muscles and realize that we as much as we want to hold on to these identities, and it's not going to work this time. It's just not going to work. We either work together or we don't, and we suffer the consequences for that.
You know, Jeff, you talked about the word identity. I'm thinking that there's some element and please don't anyone take this the wrong way, I'm in the midst of the same struggles that you all have been so generous in sharing in my own ways. But I do think there's an element of self-absorption to this. Like, so I read a lot of an Indian philosopher, Krishnamurti, who, he's got a book, The First and Last Freedom, and some of what he talks about points to this idea of, as we age and as we find some measure of success in our lives, we start to get to this place where we think that the real key is to hang on, to grasp your beliefs and your identity more tightly and to dive deeper into them. And that's sort of the key. When in fact, what if the key were to do just the opposite, right? To actually just let go, get good at really letting go of all the things you think you know, of all of the things you've accumulated in your lifetime that cause you to take these positions on certain things and feel like, well, I'm a person who thinks this way. What if we got to a place where we actually got really good at letting those go so that we could constantly be in this state of welcoming new, right? Welcoming novelty, welcoming transformation, welcoming renewal. And that one of the things that makes that so difficult is our self-absorption. Like, we are so into who we think we are, who we want to say we are, that it prevents us from releasing things, from being able to confront truths that are challenging, from being able to kind of come into contact with different ways of viewing those things. So I feel like this idea of letting go rather than hanging on more tightly is something that I'm going to be exploring a whole lot more. And that I do think, and this could be a cop-out, but that I do think that that is a way to engage with our truths, right? Not to forget about them, but to actually identify them and let them go to some degree.
That's a good case then for Tom to shave his beard, because I read that the highest risk are people with beards. Truly, I did. You gotta let go of that identity, Tom.
But he's isolated, so it's like I can touch my face because I've been alone for a week, right?
By the way, I actually use that logic all the time. I'm like, I'm alone. Touch my face. But I have been to Starbucks a couple times, and I drove to Florida and back. So I've been in the world, but I did the 6 feet rule, and we'll see what happens.
Do people go to the bathroom in this online version of the Neighborhood Project?
You will. We're about to end, but you certainly.
Okay.
Neil, you look like you're in the bathroom.
Wait a second. I went from my jet to.
Your jet to the bathroom.
Could be both.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
I wrote a benediction this morning for somebody. That might be a nice ending if you want.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Just before we do that, I'm going to ask one question. Trish, why do you say the truth will set you free every day?
Because I'm going through a lot of personal stuff in my life right now, and I'm trying to be true to what I've been finding out about myself. And the more I say that, the more I talk about it, it is setting me free. And this neighborhood project, this platform, has given me so much confidence in myself as to who I am and who I'm becoming and where I'm going in my life, that the truth is setting me free every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I asked because it's, I in my journal, I write my intentions, and first thing I write, please help me see truth today, and because I know how lost I get lost, man. I am like way off a lot. And the narratives that I can tell myself are just unbelievable. And those things that are so scary when you're actually locked into truth, like the scary factor goes way down. I mean, part of the narrative is that whatever you're afraid of, you've written a whole story about it that just sucks.
Yeah.
Probably never going to happen. And, you know, if you could actually write that other story, which also probably wouldn't happen in a literal sense, meaning the exact things, the general feelings just are there all the time. Anyway, thanks for sharing that.
It's these conversations where we get vulnerable, where we are raw and real and authentic, is where transformation happens.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely brilliant.
I'm happy to hear you say that. I mean, it's, you know, I have a group of friends who I love these guys. They think I'm weird as hell when I say this stuff, you know, and yet I look at it and I'm like, this is a kind of medicine. And medicine's kind of a shitty word because don't think pill. It's not what this is. This is reality. Like I say, it's a nuance hunt. You got to understand your nuance. Well, it's going to require a hunt. If they knew the nuance of you, Jeff, you think they're going to shit all over you and you know what I mean? Like, come on, people. We're going to shit all over each other in the internet all day. That's because you're afraid of nuance. You're afraid of sort of going on that path. And of course you can assume that 90% of those people yelling and screaming at each other on the internet, you'd love them too. 98% of them, you'd love them too. But I can only get it here. I love to read. I love to do other things. I love to journal. I can only get to the degree of the nuance if I have an authentic conversation with another human being.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Nadia, you want to go?
Yeah, talk about vulnerable. Literally, I haven't even read this yet. It just came out of my fingers, so who knows? But here it is. It's called A Blessing for Melissa. Melissa, you said that suppression was the only tool you had to deal with that kind of fear and vulnerability. But once you shove something in the attic of your subconscious, you don't know what it's going to take with it. So I'd like to take your hand and go check out the attic together. I'll pull that cord that hangs from the ceiling and let the stairs open like an unfolded fist. We'll look around once our eyes adjust and see the clutter of embarrassments and girlhood secrets and the one time you lied about that one thing. A pile of shrapnel from blowing up your life piled on top of a carton of the worst fears about yourself. And we will see what else got stored away with them, quarantined for no fault of their own, that sweet part of your vocal range that shakes when you say something you're afraid of, sits covered in dust next to your own tender neediness. And I won't say, let's take it all down from the attic. I'll say, let's grab some floor lamps, a bucket of fresh paint, and a really nice rug. Attics need not be so dreary. Maybe if they look warm and inviting and we just keep the stair pulled down, the best parts of you and the worst parts of you can have a little freedom of movement and not feel ignored and do things and try and get some, and not feel ignored and then do things to try and get some attention. May you, Melissa, redecorate your subconscious like a queer eye for the soul. Love, Nadia.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time. We're sort of all spread over the country, and we're going to keep learning in real time sort of what this moment is that we're in. And if we can be helpful to you, please. And, you know, I'm sure you guys are being helpful to a lot of other people as well. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Blessings to all of you.
Bye, guys.